Boom shakalaka.
What up? Hello, that looks dope, man. I like your background, bro.
The Temple of Kas.
Yeah, dude. That's your dojo, huh?
Dude,
Look at that thing.
this is the. You gotta come by.
What? Hell yeah. I've been there. I've been by, but you didn't have all those goodies.
Yeah, this is a happy place.
That's freaking awesome, bro. Good for you. Did you build that thing out on the, did you build that awning out or whatever you call that?
Christina had it built for me. She ordered it, and then she has a guy, and he built it, and it's actually in the ground. It's built into the ground now. So
Yeah, that's cool.
yeah, man, it's a good little.
So are we on? Are we doing this?
Yeah, let me. So I watched this one. I think it was Tom Green, and he was on Joe Rogan podcast. You remember Tom Green?
I sure do.
And he said he was on the Ed McMahon show or something like that. And Johnny Carson. Ed McMahon was the sidekick for Johnny Carson, and he said Johnny Carson was like his inspiration or something. And he said one time he met Ed McMahon, and Ed McMahon, they were going to talk before the show, and he said Johnny would always say, don't start it in the hallway because it's going to get left in the hallway. So start it on the show. So I'm just going to hit record, and then I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
So I'm going to figure out the recording process. Oh, we're already recording. Blam, it's automatic. All right, so we got all that on the video and chop it off if need be. But I'm excited to be here right now and with my good friend and fellow compatriot in all things health superheroing.
Absolutely. I'm excited too, my friend.
And, I was just thinking about like so much stuff in the shower right before this. And I just kind of wanted to just pitch it to you right off the bat. And I had a question in mind, but that question totally slipped out of my brain. So I'm just going to pitch it to you. And I'm going to let you start. I'm not going to give any introduction for the creation of this, the coming to about of this, just anything. If people are here, they know already. They're already on that level of who you are. They're already at a level of what Chef Kas does. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
So
amen.
I'm just gonna pass it to you, and let's see where it goes.
Okay. So you don't have a question. I'm just gonna start talking.
Yeah. I just kind of want to see what's on the top of your head, like what's on the top of your mind right now in terms of, like, I have certain things on my mind. I was just doing a live before this about strategy and all this, but like, what are you thinking about right now that you want to share that like you think people need to hear, to know? It's like, the information we're getting is like new, right? And like you're on the forefront. I know, because I've known you a long time. Mm-hmm. I'm on the forefront. I know it. Once you know that about yourself, or you know it about somebody else, you start listening to your own thoughts, and you listen to people who are thinking that way. So what are things right now?
Yeah, I definitely have an answer for that one. Yeah, it's been, as we know, it's been a very challenging year and a half. It's been crazy as far as like the lockdown and the coronavirus and everything else. But my main thing is I've always tried to appeal to a bigger audience. So I never really took a strong stance in one thing that has to do with anything political, nor did I really care, throughout the duration, the most part of my life. I've always been into my passion and going out with my friends and having fun and trying to build a business. But watching what has happened and the way it's unfolded in the world recently, it has definitely given me stronger ideas about what a ideal world would look like for me. Being a new dad, I mean, not that new, but I have a 4-year-old little girl. That has really changed my thoughts of how I look at the world. Number one, it's taken my attention off myself and has put it on somebody else. So I think that combined with these ideas that are being exchanged of how the world should be has been very difficult for me to process, because I see the world one way. I see it through the eyes of Shane, and using Instagram and Facebook and social media platforms as a filter through other people's perspective has definitely thrown me for a loop. And it's got me a little isolated. Like I had to incubate for a period of time to really figure out, what do I believe? How do I see the world? And how much of my vision am I adopting from my tribe and the people around me? And it spun me for an incredible loop, man, like where I was heavily into, as you know, into psychedelics, ayahuasca, new age stuff. This, what has unfolded recently has got me really diving into the Bible and who I am as a person, all my flaws that I carry with me. I've been so focused for so long on trying to get away from the idea that we're flawed at all. That for the last like 11 years, I've been told from all the information I've been reading that we're inherently perfect and we have to wake up to the God within, and we're all just consciousness having an experience. But I can definitely see a world that is divided, and I see myself on one side of it. And it doesn't have anything to do really with politics and what has recently happened with the election. That's not it. It has to more do with how much of responsibility do we have. One thing I love is I love to listen to this guy is Jordan Peterson. And one thing he said while we were in lockdown really had a big impact on me. He says, before you try to fix the world, make sure that your room is clean first. Pick up your room first. And that's something I've never really done. Like, because of social media and because I can highlight, you know, hey, you guys, I'm out feeding the homeless people today. Hey, I'm teaching at a school with a bunch of kids and I'm teaching them health and wellness. Look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. And I got so wrapped up in that where this constant patting myself on the back for all these good things I was doing became a part of my identity and my showmanship. And although in the moment I can convince myself that I was doing something authentic and genuine, in reality, when I took a step back from myself, if the camera wasn't on me, how much of that was really me? And so I'm really in this space right now of, like I said, separating myself and trying to find out who I am. Also, that I think would be a good conversation is I met you first when I started Greens and Proteins, and you were doing a demo with me at a gym and we're teaching health and wellness. That's so awesome. That was our first introduction. But also my ego has always told me this whole time, you got to have a restaurant. You got to have this big space around you. So everyone knows like this is your stage when they walk in, this is your place. And I've also separated myself for a long period of time on where I thought I should be, as opposed to really tapping in on what my talents really are. And so it's been very humbling. I'm very grateful for what has unfolded, the way I'm seeing the world today. And that's what's on my mind, man, is just trying to figure out where I went wrong and trying to steer myself back on a straight path. And I know that's going to be a lifelong journey, but I do feel like I'm closer to me now than I've ever been.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the honesty, the vulnerability, the perspective, the reflectiveness, the reflection. And I think that one thing that's so important coming from what you said is that the change is like not something that makes sense sometimes, right? Like the contrast you illustrated, going from certain lifestyle, certain very strong beliefs, to this extent of, something you believe in something strongly when you start being an advocate for it, right? When you're like, oh, I'm going to run into this person in Whole Foods. I'm going to start telling them, you need to get on this. You need to do this. This is going to be the thing. And you do that. And I do that. I advocate a lot of stuff. I really believe in the stuff that I advocate. But here's the funny thing. I'll give you an example. When I was 26 years old, I had been doing a lot of voyaging, traveling here and there. And at one point, I was like, I need to cleanse my body. I didn't even know, I never heard of cleanse at that point. The 26, okay, you got to keep in mind, it's 14 years ago, right? That's 2000, we're talking 2007. Maybe cleanses existed. I didn't know about it. People think 2007 it's like yesterday. 2007 was a different world. There weren't greens and proteins in 2007. right? I lived on the East Coast. There were some restaurants in New York City, Manhattan, but I ended up, I was driving down to Virginia Beach. Okay, it's a very spiritual kind of place, right? If you're not aware already. And I decided, I'm only gonna drink like smoothies for like this whole trip. But there were no smoothies driving down from New Jersey to Virginia Beach. So I like stopped at the gas station. I just got some carrot sticks and some celery sticks. I was like, wow, I feel so much better. I'm so energized. And when I got to this town, Virginia Beach, they actually had a raw food store. I didn't even know raw food was the thing at the time. And I got so into it. I bought all the books. I went to live in Hawaii. Not really anything to do with that, but I had already had this trip planned to go to live in Hawaii. I was doing raw food diet through it. I lost a whole lot of weight. I felt like energized. I wasn't heavy, but I got super, super lean. All the things physiologically that are going to happen, putting that sort of nutrition into your body, living a certain lifestyle. So, dude, when I came back, I was like, you got to do the raw food diet, right? Like, again, this is pretty, like, I didn't even know this was a thing when I got into it. And I started telling everybody, and I had the science. If you heat a food past 110 degrees, you kill all the enzymes. The food has no value. And then, like 3 months later, I was eating Skippy out of the jar, 12 o'clock at night, like, because I was starved, right? Somewhat unconscious. And does it negate the belief that I had in that program? Does it negate that it actually benefited me? Like, did I get off of it? Does that mean that those results didn't actually happen? So I think that the process of transformation or change or personal development, whatever, there's so many words. I've been having this thing in my head recently that, cliches are cliche for a reason, but that's still a cliche. Even that statement is, and like we sometimes I think as people, we will believe we will.
Can you explain that to me? Cliches are cliches for a reason. What's the reason?
Because they're true. A high percentage of the time. It's like, I hate to say it, but stereotypes. Like, I can use myself, right? I'm Jewish, right? I know a lot of frugal Jews. You could also look at it as they're not wasteful. You could also look at it as they learned how to accumulate wealth, right? Or Jews have big noses. My nose isn't huge, but I know a lot of Jews with bigger noses, my family members included, right? So stereotypes are stereotypes for a reason. Cliches are cliches for a reason. Doesn't mean they're true 100% of the time, right? But it's like the cliche about change. It's like, change is the only constant. And so this process that we all go through in different ways, whether it's your lifestyle and health habits, whether it's your spiritual practice, whether it's the people you associate with, right? Just the reality that in 5 years, in 10 years, it's going to be probably a completely different version. Doesn't mean parts of what you're doing now or parts of what I'm doing now aren't going to be included in that version, but it's not just going to be more of the same, right? It's not just going to be just any, like, new things will come in. And the reason I think this is so important, and I'm going to bring it all back to where you started, was with COVID and everything. And I just came to realize, I'm a philosopher. My bachelor's degree was in biology and philosophy. And the relativity of truth, the relativity of information is one of those things that will just make you spin in circles. It will make you a crazy person. I'm sure you had the experience working with somebody with their health, and you kind of get to a point where you're like, there's not like a point where you're like, you can just check out. It is a deep, dark rabbit hole. I tell people all the time, where you could control every aspect of your environment, everything that goes into you, every second of how you spend your day to achieve some quote unquote perfect health. And then you get run over by a bus. Right. So a lot of these things there's the aspect of controlling what I am exposed to, controlling what I'm reading, controlling what I'm thinking. But then there's also the fluidity. Right. And it's interesting to hear where you're at, where you're like, you've gone through kind of two extremes. But what you're really talking about is the process of what it's like to be living between them, because like, I'm sure there's still people who see you and they're like, what are you into? What happened to you? And how you respond with that discordant reality now of just, that's just not who I am anymore. And I'm still an advocate for some things, but now it's like, how do people interact with you, and even how do you interact with yourself? So I don't necessarily need to make it all, you can share whatever you want, but it doesn't all have to be subjective as in your personal experience. But I like to talk about this because I think to some degree or another, we're all dealing with these things, or we've all dealt with them, or we will again deal with them. So yeah, just, thoughts. That's what this is all about. I love it. Philosophy.
Yeah. No, I think it's important that we get to these. I mean, that's why they call them chapters. We finish one chapter and we pick up another chapter. And I've had many of these chapters throughout my whole entire life, and it does keep getting deeper and deeper. But what I'm noticing the chapters are starting to reveal is personal accountability. There is nothing on the outside of me that is going to bring me to this ultimate happiness. Like, I thought it was going to be owning my business, being an entrepreneur and owning a business. And I thought that was going to be ultimate happiness. I got there and I realized, nope, that's not it. Then I thought, maybe I just need to be more spiritual and I need to meditate longer. And maybe if I consume all this plant medicine, I would have some sort of higher knowledge that would give me this fulfillment that nothing else can give me. And that's not it. And really what it comes down to is holding myself accountable and quit passing the buck and blame on everybody else, and just taking charge of my life. And it's a shame that it took me 43 years to get here, but I'm happy that I'm here. But I do finally realize that, like, if I want to do a business, I don't need a bunch of business partners. I need to do this thing on my own. And if there's a part that makes me uncomfortable, I need to dive into that discomfort and really challenge myself to do the things that make me feel a little vulnerable, which is where I'm at right now. But yeah, this life is just so wild. And like, I was listening to the news last night. It's been coming up a lot recently, is that like there's these unidentified flying objects that have been flying around all over the place. And for the first time, like, we have mainstream media calling out UFOs, and this world is just so insane, bro. And watching you grow and who you are today has been absolutely, you're a different dude than when I first met you. The way you talk, the way you present yourself, you were cool then, but you're way more laid back and you're cooler now. Like, I could tell, like, Chef Kaz, Astronaut Kaz has definitely taken more of a backseat, and Adam is coming through a lot more. And it's the same thing with me too, man. Raw mixologist, eat your seed, blah, 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 blah. And I'm taking a step back, and Shane's coming through a lot more in my life, instead of trying to put on this alter ego all the time. But yeah, dude. And I think one thing that would be freaking awesome to talk about is because we have so much to offer in this particular area, is our journey with health and wellness. I liked where you were going with that in particular, about how this could be such a dark rabbit hole. And this all ties in together, because as you know, once you start taking accountability, is what I was just speaking of, and you start taking charge of your health, and this becomes a lifelong journey, that really includes everything, doesn't it? And it includes the information that we take in, the relationships that we have. And I had that one thing to set to a dial, man, with my health and wellness. Like, I know how to be healthy and maintain health when it comes to food. But there's so many other areas where I'm slipping. Like, I see you in your gym behind you. Dude, you're in the best shape I've ever seen you in my entire life. So it's like there's all this room for growth and improvement always. And yeah, I'm just blown away how much more there is to learn as we think we're getting close, and then another door opens and you're going, oh, bro, I have so far to go. This is not even funny. But yeah, man, I don't even know where I was going with that comment, but I want to know, like, from when I first met you, how has your ideas changed about how you deal with your clients in health and wellness?
I'm going to answer that, I promise you, but I want to address three things you said first.
Yeah.
Actually,
okay.
Your first clip. You mentioned one of my favorite people in the entire world, Dr. Jordan Peterson, Dr. Jordan.
Yeah.
I love that guy. I've been listening.
I let him.
Well, like, I feel like a lot of us kind of found him around the same time. And one of the things that I really like about him, like I mentioned, I was a philosophy major, and I'm like, we have all these business leaders, we have all these health leaders, we have all these fitness leaders, but we don't have who are the modern thinkers of the day. And I, you and I think are on the same page that the mouthpieces that are the main big names are not them, right? The people that are on the news networks, blah blah blah. Those aren't the people, right? Maybe at one point they were, but they're not anymore, right? So
no,
Jordan Peterson, he really hasn't sold out, right? Like that's kind of why I think a lot of us kind of like him at its core. Like if you look at like the thing that brought him into popular consciousness when he was at University of Toronto, when he refused to, use a pronoun in a certain way, and they tossed him out of the school because he wouldn't call a male biological human a female, right? He wouldn't refer to male biology as a she. And so, he got tossed out of the school, and that's kind of what brought him to kind of prominently known for that battle that he, was willing to engage in, and, stand up for something, right? So I think that today with the world, you could say like there's the Joe Rogans, there's all the people that he brings onto his show who are thinkers, but there's not a lot of like just philosophical philosophy. Philosophizer is not a word, but I'm gonna use it. Okay, there's not a lot of like people just like philosophizing. And look, I'm gonna be the first one to say I'm probably not gonna read a book today. I'll listen to an audiobook, but my reading attention skills, I can't even finish an article on freaking whatever. I can't even, it's a 3-page article. I'll finish at half a page, but I'll listen to audiobooks or I'll listen to podcasts all day. So I think that the next medium of philosophy, or not even next, we're in the current already unfoldings of it, but philosophy hasn't gone anywhere. Do you know what philosophy actually means?
What?
It means love of wisdom, right? So the ologies are like biology is the study of. Biology is the study of life, right? The osophies are the love of. So philosophy is the love of wisdom. So who are the lovers of wisdom today? Who are the proponents of not this is the truth, but let's question everything, right? Let's just throw everything to question and just see what happens, right? Not because we're looking for some result. So I love that you called him out because, psychology, which is his practice, comes from philosophy. The roots of psychology are in philosophy. So I aimed for this to be in that vein of being a modern philosophical dialogue, right? And health and wellness are an important part of that for a number of reasons. So the second thing I wanted to mention was
before we pass on past Jordan Peterson, I just want to say not only is he obviously he has really geared me in more ways than I can possibly, I guess, say in the length of a podcast. Number one, I watched his Bible courses that he was doing online, and I found out that he doesn't even particularly believe in a God, but he said these stories that have been passed down for over 3,000 years are the most incredible stories for us to develop a moral compass. And I thought that was interesting because I never really thought of developing a moral compass for myself. But, I took his word on everything else. So I said, all right, I'll pick up the Bible and I'll start reading it. And dude, my mind was just blown away about how much goodness is in that Bible. And I can't believe it took me this long to finally open that thing up. But another thing that he does, that the reason why he got kicked out of the school is he's not a conformist. Like he has his beliefs because he digs so deep in his knowledge. So he has an incredible, well-rounded education and thought process rather than just going with the herd and saying whatever is popular in the moment, which is what we're seeing so much of. It's saturated. And I hate to use the word cheapo, but I mean, I don't know what you call it. There's so many people that identify like with what's happening with the mask right now. One of the main reasons why people, I mean, there is obviously some fear of, taking the mask off and what are the repercussions. But one of the things that are happening right now is not wanting to take off the mask because they don't want to look like the other side. They don't want to be mistaken as a conservative. So they leave the mask on because their herd, or their group of people, their culture says, hey, we live this on because now we can identify each other by who has a mask on and who doesn't. But that dude lays it all on the table. He will start crying in the middle of interviews for no reason, dude. He's just so open emotionally. And that kind of vulnerability and that authenticity is really all that I'm striving for at this moment. Like, I can't pick a bigger role model for myself besides, honestly, it's going to trigger some people, besides Jesus Christ, where he's given me so much value. So I just wanted to give him the payment that he's due, with the respect that he's gotten from me, that I have to get. Sorry, that didn't come out too good. The respect that he deserves from my perspective, because he's part of the reason why I'm so open on social media now. I used to hide my thoughts and feelings and try to find like what was going to be the lightest way to share something that doesn't offend anyone. And now I'm just like, fuck it, dude. Like, if I don't share what's on my heart and how I truly feel, it didn't feel good when I was keeping it all bottled inside. It was eating me alive. And I don't know why I feel like I have to express myself in such a way so I'm heard. It's just one of the needs that I have. But yeah. So anyway, thank you to that guy for being a big part of my growth this last year and a half.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's interesting what you're talking about with the mass, the sheeple, whatever term, however you want to put it. Actually, my freshman year seminar, so we had a seminar class where we had to it wasn't like a regular class. You'd like read a book and then you just kind of like discuss it, right, in the classroom. And my freshman year philosophy seminar class was math, social psychology. And man, I got to find the reading list for that class. It was all books that discuss, in a lot of it was an allegory, right? It was told through a story. The meaning, the the metaphor was, told often like a fictional tale. And it's just very prescient, it's very appropriate, having studied that. So I need to get that reading list. But
with the Fountainhead on there? Have you read the Fountainhead?
I read it. You know what? I've actually never read the Fountainhead. I read.
Oh, dude, I just started reading it, but holy cow, does that pertain to what's going on in the world right now? Wild. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So no, I just wanted to say it too because again, people will be like, oh, Jordan Peterson is cool, right? Or Jordan Peterson knows some good shit, or he made an impression on me. But that's like where it stops, right? So what I want to do with what I'm aiming to do with everything in my life, it's not just one category, right? It's not just like it's just cooking, it's just nutrition, it's just working out. It's like those things are avenues. Those things are channels into, like, for example, I think of, and I still want to answer your other question, but a lot of my approach towards like overall.
Don't worry about that. If it circles back to that, we'll go there.
It will. It is, and it will. But I still want to touch on something else from earlier too. But a lot of my approach focuses on what I call your optimal state. Okay, so I'm gonna go kind of macro, then I'm gonna bring it down back against the micro. So the optimal state is if you could define how you want to show up in any given moment. What adjectives would you use to describe it? So I find that most people are going to describe 80-20. So 80 is going to be like on and 20 is going to be off, right? So the 20 would be like relaxing time, just chill out, not being productive, right? You don't want to show up in the go mode that you want to show up in the recovery and relax mode, right? So I'm going to talk for right now about the go mode, but you also want to kind of consider how do you want to show up when you're in rest mode. So the go mode, for example, for me, I like to be high energy. I like to be focused. I like to be clear headed. I like to be, that middle point between rigid and flexible, right? It's very hard to be both, right? To be right in between, to be alert, to be, open-minded to an extent, because it's good to consider new ideas. It goes into that fluidity, that flexibility. So everything I do is built around wanting to produce that state in certain points throughout my day. Like after we finish this, I'm going to take a short little nap in the massage chair. I'm going to get ready for my class. I'm going to go drop off some food for somebody on the way to the gym, and I'm going to show up for class. By the time I circle back to class, I'll be back in this energy state. But I'm going to wind this state down to a more of a sympathetic nervous system state, relax and digest, let everything recharge. Already did like a 3-hour workout this morning, did a bench work. I'm sitting out here, 92, 93 degrees here in Vegas. I'm using the natural power of the heat, right, to stimulate my body rather than just, I could go sit in the air-conditioned house, but challenging my physiology in that way, which also causes, again, that helps produce that optimal state. So this is the approach. This is where it's like what we try to do, and this is where that we go from the mass thinking and what you're talking about today, just societal behavior, to now mass thinking in terms of health and well-being, where I don't look at things in a vacuum exclusively. I might say, okay, let's look at your diet in a vacuum. But I then say, okay, well, how does it go from in a vacuum to the reality of your day-to-day life, your in and out life? Okay. And we can go back to this, but the other thing I wanted to say that,
I want to hit you. before we pass on,
I'll go on
what you just said, what you just said. So how is that written out, what you just said, or is that something you have in your mind? All those different stages, those points you're going to hit in a day.
I need to write it out, to be honest.
You write it out. So you write it out the day before.
Okay. So you're saying about the strategy, the daily routine.
You just told me, you just told me a very intense daily routine.
It's constantly under revision and development, but it is in my calendar. It's in my online calendar, because reminders, man, are the biggest health and wellness secret I could give anybody. Your reminder.
I agree.
And I have this one client, I said, he has this whole reminder set up schedule for his sales routine. And I said, how much of that do you think you actually do? And he said about 40%. And I said, okay, that's fine. How much of your workout routine and your nutrition, your health routine do you have in your calendar? He's like, I don't have anything. I said, if you put that on your calendar, how much of it do you think you're going to hit? And he's like, probably about 40%. Like, how much more is that than you're doing now? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you map it out ahead of time, your likelihood of doing it goes way, way up. There's a great book I'll put you onto if you're not familiar with it already, called Atomic Habits. James.
Oh yeah, I've read it. Read it.
So that's this whole thing, is basically, putting yourself in a position where your likelihood of doing the thing that you set out to do, your past self has thought about your future self, right? And now your current self is thanking that past self for thinking about your future self.
That book turned me on to mapping out my whole day the day before. And you're exactly right. Like having it all laid out and still keeping it flexible, because you can never determine what the day is actually going to look like. But if I don't have that and I want to do all the things that I want to do, you can't do it, dude. Time goes by so quick that if you could slip up and get on a conversation with a good friend that lasts too long, that takes away your energy from diving in and doing sales calls for the next day. I mean, having a regimen and having the reminders on there and saying, oops, that one's done, moving on to the next thing. It's a necessity for, I think, if everyone should at least try it, for sure. It's definitely improved my life considerably to have everything out on the calendar.
It's just about eliminating randomness, at the end, right? It's not like, oh, it has to adhere to this. Oh, everything's going to fall apart and go to shit. It's just like, no, like if I hit 8 out of the 10 things I have on there, that's an excellent day, right? Rather than, oh, I didn't get 10 out of 10, so it's a failure. That's the mental shift that, and I think a lot of this does go into the societal kind of neuroses that we're seeing where, again, it's that where does the value from my life come from? And it goes back to what you were saying before about the external versus the internal, right? Externally derived value versus internally derived value. That before you can say way more of your personal value, your self-esteem was coming from groups you were part of, or, a certain type of relationship that may produce a certain, like satisfaction that we keep going back for, right? Rather than, oh, you know what? I stuck to my routine today And yeah, I documented it, like, yeah, and I share that online. But if I get 1 like or 100, my personal valuation doesn't change. And there's something that's very tied into this. This is the other thing I wanted to get to, that it doesn't actually involve this conversation. It involves something I saw earlier on Facebook from you, which was your post with all the little stickers, the smileys. And dude, I will tell you, I think one of the most powerful tools that you have in your toolbox, and I at times have in mine, but that one can have, is the ability not to take yourself too seriously, right? So when people get into whatever it's in, politics, health and wellness, fitness, when they get too rigid, man, nobody's fucking happy like that. I'm sorry. Like, unless you're training for a competition or, you're running for office, you have to say certain things in a way. But then again, how much does that become your life? Like when did we stop like laughing at ourselves? And like, humor is gone, bro. Like, notice that with comedy, how like if someone says something a little controversial, like you said, now it's a political statement instead of they're just making fun at shit. Like, why is everything so serious all of a sudden?
I mean, you have one of the kings of comedy, David Chappelle, and he said comedy's done. He said comedy is, we know it, being able to get on stage, and that's a guy that isn't afraid to take a jab at anything. But this cancel culture and not allowing people to, to be free in who they are and express themselves without persecution. We live in a different world now, and I feel like we need to push back. We can't succumb to that, and we can either push back with anger, or we can push back by kind of making fun of ourselves, but in some sort of way. But I do feel like what you saw with the stickers, that's a pushback on the other side, trying to condemn people for wanting to take off our masks too early. Well, the CDC said we can do it. So that thing is coming off. But I could tell you, and I hit you up the other day and I said, what did it feel like walking through, the store, a group of people? Because you said you were the only one walking around with your mask off. And I felt that I had the exact same experience. But when I saw somebody else walking through without their mask on, I'd be like, what's up, homie? You're one of me. And we had like this little laugh. And now I'm starting to see more people take it off. But I don't want to say, it's kind of hard. I want to be careful when we talk about it, when I talk about myself, and I don't want it to seem like, I'm one of these early adopters and these thought leaders, but I could definitely tell you that and I know you relate to this, and this is one of our greatest kinships right here, is you notice, for you to be able to point out in your story that in 2007, 2008, there wasn't any smoothies around the place. I saw the same thing. When I did Greens and Proteins and I came here to Las Vegas and I did my first demo for those guys, and I was putting spinach in with chocolate and throwing in avocado, they're like, dude, no one's going to eat this stuff. And I go, are you kidding me, bro? He's like, in the color green for a smoothie, like people don't like to want to eat the color green. And, Athletic Club was right in the same parking lot. So they had like the blueberry smoothie and everything else. And I said, trust me, bro. I said, let me go out in front of Sunrise Cafe with a tray, and I will do some sort of fun game. And I'll say, guess what vegetables are in here. They're not going to be able to guess it. They're going to love it so much. But I knew that early on that health and wellness was going to be something that was going to be in the forefront of our culture at some point, because I lived in LA. It was super trendy in LA. There was nothing happening here in Vegas. But I knew inevitably
that we may get cut off. Okay, this may only go 40 minutes.
Oh, okay, good. Where are we at?
We're almost at 40 minutes. I want you to continue.
Oh,
in case it just dropped
out. But us being at the forefront of where we're at right now, you taking off your mask, me taking off my mask. Dude, there is an intuition that is there where we know where happiness lies. Like, being free is just being free to express yourself and helping other people. And I don't want to keep talking and rambling, but like, what are your thoughts on that? Do you feel like I
said I can keep listening and I can keep talking.
Yeah.
I don't want us to get cut off.
Do you feel like you happen to be one of these like early adopters? And do you seem sometimes you're so far ahead of the game that it kind of feels out of place and you're wondering why people aren't catching up? Yeah. And I know that sounds egotistical, but
things absolutely I am. and I aim to be, and I know there's value in being, right? Like think about being an early adopter and buying a certain stock or cryptocurrency, like there's no difference in investment. Investment is just where you put something over time, right? Like I invest in my health, well-being, fitness, ability to function physically and mentally every single day, right? I could be sitting instead in front of a computer day trading. Right? I could apply the same level of intellect, attention, energy to those things and just build up my bank account and say to myself, well, later on, I'll get really into health and fitness. Right? We're constantly, like you said about personal accountability, we're constantly assessing situations, assessing the outcome, the potential outcomes of decisions, and then making decisions. Doesn't mean they're all good. Doesn't mean they're all rational. Doesn't mean they're all
absolutely
smart. But like I treat a lot of my life like a science experiment. I've always been this way. This is how this is how I, started eating a plant-based diet. This is how I got into nutrition. This is how I got, how I am with working out. This is how I am with my clients. Anyone who tells someone else, I think that there's one right way and that's the only right way, I think it's full of it, especially when it comes down to like this health and wellness thing, there's certain areas of life where, yes, there's a pretty good likelihood of a certain outcome if you do things a certain way. And there's a different highly likely outcome if you do things a different way. But there's always exceptions, right? And that's what's maddening, right? You remember, I mean, maybe not these days, but remember when you were younger, this was the crazy one for me. When I would go out all night partying, right? I'd get home at like 4 or 5 a.m., maybe 6, maybe 7, sleep for like 2 or 3 hours and wake up and be like amazingly on. Now, it wasn't often, right? I'd say 5 out of 6 times it wasn't like that. But on that 6th time, I would be so clear-headed. I'd be like, this is awesome. But it's not really a repeatable pattern, right? It's not like, okay, if I go out all night and stay up and drink, I will feel great the next day, right? That's not really the formula. And it certainly isn't the formula as you get older. So you have to kind of identify what are the things, what are the, the percentiles, right? You have to kind of look for those things that are maybe 60, 70, 80% and up, that when I do this, it produces this. And what is the result? Of course, like remember what I was talking before about that optimal state. It's like, what's the state I want to show up in, right? What things produce that state? Anticipating that ahead of time. When do I want to show up in that state? How much before that do I need to do this? Like today I teach capoeira. I need to go in a half hour early and get into my headspace. Like I need to put on my headphones, stretch out. We do a stretching and everything in class, but I know I need to do, so I need to account for that in my day. I need to get out of the house earlier than I really, have to. And this is the way, this is the approach across the board. I always think of my ideal, I'm not saying it's realistic, but my ideal kind of life approach being like Bradley Cooper in Limitless. You ever see Limitless?
Yeah.
The NZT, right? So, but I don't think there's an actual NZT pill, but I think that there's a lot of things that we can do that will, all the pill does, if you remember in the movie, is improves his decision making, right? His ability to think ahead and then choose which route to go, right? And again, I could walk out of the house today, God forbid, and get run over by a bus. Why is there a bus on my street? I don't know. There's no bus traffic, right? But that could happen. So all this planning could be for naught. But I personally, I enjoy it. That's the thing. That's like at the core of all this, where it's like, if you don't enjoy this stuff, if you're doing it because it feels like a chore, over time, I think things become more enjoyable too. That's a whole different concept, that in the beginning, they're going to be hard. They're going to be uncomfortable. It's going to feel weird. Like a lot of lifestyle changes you've made, I'm sure in the beginning, especially, even as much as outspoken and, happy to be, called out as you might be, it's still a little bit uncomfortable at times, but you go through it, go through the process, and then you find yourself on the other side. You're like, okay, I'm glad I did things this way. So that's a lot of information, but I'm fired up right now. And obviously we didn't.
Yeah. I want
to do, if you want, we'll go a full hour and we'll call it at 2.
Yeah.
Cool.
Wait, it's not going to cut off, or it is going to cut off?
I don't think we got cut off because it was supposed to be 40 minutes. It said there was a 40-minute time limit. We're already 5 minutes past that. So I think we're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, man. So I know you've been on this journey of really trying to pinpoint how to live a life that is what would you call what you're trying to achieve with limitless, this lifestyle? I mean, more, as much control as you possibly can, right?
Well, I don't think so, because like I said, that's where you have to be fluid. You have to be flexible, because once you get addicted to the control, you're gonna get, you're gonna get disbalanced another way inevitably. And
how long have you been on this journey of trying to pinpoint these certain weaknesses and then overcome them through making these adjustments? How much to add this much precision to your life? When did this start?
About 26 years, maybe more.
And then what realization have you had? I mean, have you achieved it in your mind, or have you finally realized that maybe it's not as attainable as you thought? Or where are you at with,
keep in mind, that part? For me, it's okay. So there always has to be the personal motivators, right? So it can't just be like, like I want health just for the sake of health, right? So, and if you're an older person, maybe you're like, oh, I want health so I can spend more time with my grandkids, right? Or you're like, I just want to, go into my old age and, be able to be self-sufficient, right? I don't want somebody else wiping my ass, right? For me, it's like, I really like training. Like in general, it's like my happy place, bro. Like I can start and just not stop unless I need to do something, or I stop because I'm like, okay, I got another session later. I don't want to overdo it. So, and like that goes to capoeira. I enjoy teaching. I really love teaching capoeira. I love being pain-free and injury-free. I love being an example of breaking a stereotype of what 40 looks like, right? And I could keep going. There's so many things that it's just like, this motivates me, this motivates me, this motivates me. And I think that, to some extent, I think especially men, I think we're problem/puzzle solvers, right? I think like, again, that philosophical mind, that questioning mind, like, why did I gravitate towards science? Why did I gravitate towards philosophy? I'm extremely cerebral, right? I think through stuff all day. So when I actually do physical stuff, it's one of the few times that in some ways I get to like turn off my brain. But it's not turned off, it's just analyzing something physical instead of something mental, like solely mental. I think that's part of it. So I don't think it's like this expecting to achieve some final point, rather than it's embracing the process of the learning. And then what I find in that process, hopefully, one, I can replicate and it benefits me in some way, shape, or form. But I also like sharing it with others. If I find some tool or some modality or some piece of equipment that benefits one of my clients, like I take a great passion in sharing something that benefited me, especially if it actually benefits them. When you add some value to somebody's life where like they're like, I was in pain, now I'm not in pain. I couldn't move in a certain way that is important or I like, and now I can. There's a feeling in that's, there's not a lot to describe. Even just helping somebody improve at something. Like the first time I did a cartwheel in capoeira, like, dude, that was like a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
Like I did a cartwheel. I was like, I never thought I'd be able to do a cartwheel. So that's where it's just like, it's the personal, like nobody told me to have that identity. Nobody needed to convince me that that's what I should be into or I should like. It's just who I am. I remember, and I'm gonna pass you the mic back, but I remember in college, it was really like a seminal moment for me. I had this friend of mine, guy, not really even a friend, just a guy in my fraternity, right? And one day he just like he was giving me all the time. He's like, why do you spend so much time in the gym? Why do you work out so much? What is it? And I just was like, I like it. Like, what about that is not okay with me? And I had to kind of like accept that, like, yeah, I like to look good. That's a byproduct though of doing something I enjoy. I wouldn't do something.
Yeah, I think you get a lot of chemical reactions when you're in the gym. It brings up your serotonin, your endorphins. It's like it's addictive. Once you get into it, I could see how. I've been addicted to it as well, and I'm trying to get back to that state right now. But it's meditative, man, and I know that's your dojo. When you're doing that, I know what you mean by being able to cut off the outside world and be in the moment and exert yourself, and you have the music going. And dude, that's just what health and wellness is all about, man. It's not like when people say to me, like when I have clients and they go, oh, well, I already feel healthy. This cleanse isn't for me. This is for my wife. And then I'm just like, well, how do you know what healthy even feels like? Like, have you ever tried to eat this way for a period of time? And I said, it's like trying to explain to somebody, if he's so confused about you spending so much time in the gym and you can't explain it to somebody, it's like trying to explain to someone what a rose smells like that doesn't have the sense of smell. Like being healthy and being and having high physical endurance and stretching your body beyond its limitations and then watching it catch up and being able to do more and kick higher and jump higher. I mean, that's what we're actually talking about since the beginning of this conversation, is stretching ourselves on this journey and becoming better and better. And you're right, it doesn't just involve, it's not just a spiritual journey, it's a physical journey, it's an endurance journey, it's a relationship journey, it's stretching yourself in every aspect of your life. And it doesn't have to be militant, for you, that's what works. And you get on point in that. And I like it because I think what you do is you make it a game for yourself. You're like, by this time I'm doing this, by this time, and then you take a look at your day and your to-do list, what you did that evening, and you're like, not bad, partner, not bad. You did it up. But yeah, dude, I feel you. I know why you spend so much time in the gym and why you do it. It's healthy. We got to find the stuff that we love to do. For some people, it might be getting outdoors and going on a hike. It might be, getting a freaking canvas and painting something and doing something that they've never done before. We're all so different. It's crazy. Like you got into philosophy and I went to school for film. And I get my wheels turning when I get to be creative. I mean, that's how I even got into health and wellness, was playing with food as an art form and being able to create something that normally wouldn't taste good and create something that people love that tastes like something completely else on their taste buds. But one of my favorite quotes on the planet, and I don't know who freaking said this quote, but it might come to me, is find your passion and let it kill you, because it's better to be killed by a lover than an enemy. And that's ruled my life since I was a kid. I've never done anything that I did not love to do. I've never had a job where I had to work for somebody and I hated it and I just went to work. I mean, there was one time I was working for Danny DeVito as for Jersey Films as a script reader. And I thought it would be amazing to work for somebody like Danny DeVito, who did Galactica and I think Pulp Fiction, and Aaron Brockovich they were casting that time, and How High with Method Man and Redman. But I hated reading all these shitty scripts all the time. So I was like, done. And that might be one of my flaws, because I didn't stick with stuff and endure through the pain to maybe see what was on the other side. But I can tell you that I've lived by you, just like you being in the gym, by me allowing myself to live and breathe through my passions and not let money get in the way, not let what people say about me get in the way. Like I've had 3 restaurants and I've lost all of them. And I'm about to do another one right now. And people try to, like, that don't know me that well, like, hey, even though you wear such a smile on your face, people don't know how hard you had it. Like, I know how tough it must have been to lose your juice bar and do that. And I'm like, you don't know me that well. Like, yeah, I lost it, but do you know how long that sat with me and weighed me down? Maybe at the most one of them, which was my last one, it was a little tough because it wasn't my decision, but like 2 weeks. And I was like, well, learn that lesson, moving on to the next one. And I love that part of life, dude. Constantly new doors opening, walking through them and seeing what else is out there, but not letting go of what I've learned over here. Like I haven't taken a career choice where I was working in health and wellness. Now I'm trying to figure out how to sell stocks on the stock market. Like health and wellness is my thing. So how do I keep building on that and make myself a bigger giant and create more of an impact from all these lessons that I've learned in the past? And you can't buy an education from failure and allowing yourself to dive into your passions and let them consume you. For me, dude, that's what it's all about. So you and Capoeira, incredible, bro. Like I've seen you haven't steered away from that for one iota. And I remember sitting in a ceremony with you, a beautiful spiritual ceremony. and you brought out that instrument, bro. And whoa, that it's crazy, dude. I got a little emotional just now, just even thinking about that moment, dude. So like, I got a little choked up right here. But dude, that hit me so hard because I got to see an aspect of you that I had never seen before. And I got to really what it showed me, because we're all reflections of each other, not in a new age kind of way, but what we see in others is just a reflection of how we see ourselves. And when I saw you pull out that instrument and I saw that it was related to capoeira and how well you played it, dude, such a G for you to live out your passions the way that you do, and your freaking logo on your show, everyone your logo on your shirt. Do you know how you've represented that thing, the castronaut, for so long? I mean, if we do have to grow up in life, we do have to become adults to a certain extent, but the trick is to not lose that playful side, that inner child, and to be able to look at the world with, a set of young eyes and allow ourselves to be free and play. And what's happened to everybody right now in the world is so sad, because there is so much fear, and out of fear comes complacency and being comfortable. And look how many people don't have jobs right now because they're getting government checks. And I get it. Like, why go out and get a job if your check is bigger than the job that you can have? But that's because people aren't thinking about living life. They're not thinking about making a mark and leaving a fingerprint or a handprint or whatever you say, a mark on this planet. They're just focused on getting by without dying too soon. And one thing that you and I both relate to, and where we see eye to eye for sure, is that it's not how long you live, dude. It's how you live. And yeah, dude, I think that's why when this whole thing was happening with the pandemic, why we were able to call it out for what it was, is because we didn't find some sort of giant transformation in the middle of this. We already realized what life was about and how you had to pursue life and picking yourself up by the bootstraps, and no one's going to do it for you. You starting your business, you had to start out from nothing, zero. It wasn't like you had some dad that was a big chef and he said, hey, take over my restaurant. You created your logo, you created your brand, you created your ideology, and you stuck with it. And then you incorporated all the other stuff that you love with it at the same time. And you live life very artfully. And it's a very rare art form, because if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And from our perspective, it's kind of weird to see that a lot more people don't do it, because I think it just comes natural to you and I. But if I could say anything to anybody that is watching this, there is no right or wrong answer to how we live our life. Like, I know for a fact that as much as you write down what your milestones throughout the day, you have your weaknesses, you know what they are. And it's the stuff that we don't talk about that we need to heal from. So we all have lots of skeletons in our closet that weigh us down, but it's truly about rising above them and not allowing them to weigh you down. And yeah, dude, it's just like, we never really, I think this is the most important part of health and wellness. Honestly, I meet people that eat kale chips all day long and are sitting in front of the news talking about how much they hate the president, and they have the most acidic environment ever because of the ideas that are going through their mind, which are way stronger, way more acidic than eating a piece of chocolate cake. And so, dude, it's about figuring out this dance. And that's how I didn't think that this was the way our conversation was going to go. I thought we were going to talk about freaking nutrition this whole time. But in reality, this is the core of nutrition, because you can't take care of yourself and think about the food. Eating healthy is just the icing on the cake. You have to heal the spirit, and the spirit heals the body and the mind. And then you go, oh my God, I love myself so much. What do I have to put in this temple that's going to allow me to thrive and do better and be stronger, so I can keep on doing these things that I love for as long as possible? And really, that's what health and wellness is all about. You can't convince somebody that's not happy in life that they have to eat better if they don't have any self-worth and can't figure out what life is about anyway. The people that you see really thriving and doing good, and they're not on a fad diet and moving and yo-yoing and going up and down from one fad diet book after another. These are the people that are connected, and they're connected with what they put into their body, how they feel. They're not listening to some dietitian tell them how to eat, because they realize that their body is their guru. And that's the secret to being health, to health and wellness. It's not being vegan. It's not being on the Zone diet or the Atkins diet or the freaking, what's the one that freaking Joe Rogan was pumping earlier, was the carnivore diet. I've tried them all. It's about being able to listen to what gets your body going, dude. And that's what it's all about. And that's the answer.
Yeah, I love it, man. I'll respond to a few things, and I think we can wrap up. And if you're down, we can make this a weekly. And again, you don't have to be rigid, but structure is beneficial, right? So there's like some truths that, again, there's always going to be exceptions to the rule, including that one, right? So that's the game. Is it's not getting too attached to, oh, it looks like this or it looks like that. But if I do things that way, it tends to produce the result that I'm looking for. So like, I have something on my calendar. It doesn't mean if I don't do that I'm an abject failure, or oh, I didn't do it, so now I can't do it. Okay, I can still do it in 10 minutes, right? Like, oh, it's just as beneficial to do it in 15 minutes, even if I have 15 minutes less time of that thing, or it makes sense to reschedule that, or I'm just gonna be completely fluid and not so. The scheduling is something that has been advocated to me for a long time, but it's something that I've just kind of got to the point now where, because I've built out kind of some of the staples, you could say, just the basics, like even going to sleep at a certain time so I can wake up at a certain time, so I can work out at a certain time, because it's hot, right? My gym's outside. If I'm not out here by a certain time, it gets too hot. I don't want to do it. So you have to have those dominoes, right? Like, I want domino number 5, but really, if I really want domino number 5, I'm going to focus on dominoes 4, 3, 2, and 1. And if I haven't got 1 up yet, let me just focus on 1, right? Because at the end of the day, you're only going to be really focusing on 1 at a time. Even if you're focused on all 5, right? Even if all 5 need some maintenance, you can still only focus on 1 at a time.
That's the trick.
It's so easy. I really believe that neurologically we have a programming that seeks out absolutism, and that is responsible for a lot of what we're seeing with the clash in society today, with the discordance between different ideologies, you can say, because there's a nature to want to see things in absolutes and blacks and whites. The mind doesn't handle gray particularly well, right? And that's not your mind or my mind. That's the general, like, biological way that we're designed, right? So knowing that, here's one of the big things for me is, when you know something is a weakness or a problem or a gap, or it leads to something that isn't the ideal situation, when I know that, I need to start seeing those warning signs. I need to have, it's like the indicator lights. When those indicator lights are on, that's what I need to pay attention to, not my freaking car being on fire, right? Not my engine smoking. I had the indicator light. That's what smart people do, right? And a lot of what we're talking about, I hate to say it, but it does come down to intelligence. Now, it doesn't mean that there's a cap on intelligence or whatever intelligence. Like, when I was eating a different way, does it mean I was less intelligent? Yes. But that person also became this person. And hopefully this person gets more intelligent, and I can look back on this self and say he wasn't that intelligent. And people personalize intelligence. They think it's like, oh, you're insulting me, or that's an insult to say I'm not as intelligent as you. It's like, you literally don't know as much as me because you haven't had the same education. You haven't read the same books. You haven't had the same experience. You haven't worked with the same clients. How can you possibly know as much? You might know more in a different area. You might be incredibly intelligent about cars, right? I just gave an indicator. I know nothing about mechanics, right? I'm not intelligent. So you can kind of divide it up. But a lot of what we're talking about at the end of the day, it really comes down to intelligence. Okay, this thing came up. If I respond this way, I'm going to be really happy in the future, or I'm going to feel really good. If I respond this way, I'm going to feel lousy. Like, later on, I'm be like, dang, that was a bad choice. Does it mean that we're going to make 100 out of 100 times the choice that leads to us feeling the way we want to feel? Of course not. That's not the point. The point is the awareness of it. The awareness that, 1, we can choose, and 2, which direction each path, each choice will take us. And so I want to sum up, but one thing that you said that I thought was really interesting was you were talking about the new agey stuff. And you know what's really funny? There's a lot of truth and things in there that still work. It's all the woo-woo stuff that comes along with it. I think of it as like the news, right? Here's what the news does. Ready? They give you 10 things. 9 out of the 10 are true. They're like 2 + 2 is 4. The sky is blue. Grass is green. Clouds are soft. Water is wet. And Trump is the worst president of all time. Right? They're just going to throw the last one in there. Right? They just like you're not paying attention because they already gave you 9 truths. And I think that a lot of that new agey stuff kind of works the same way, where they're like, we're going to say a lot of things that like, you are a reflection of me. That doesn't really need to mean anything on a spiritual level. Like, we're just here in this undescribable, we cannot explain when the chances of this happening, when we really think about it, it's like, you don't even want to try to comprehend that shit. Your brain is going to fucking explode, right? So let's just accept that we got to this point, and that like, you know some things that I know some things that you know. You show me some of my vulnerabilities and weaknesses. I show you some of yours. You show me some of my strengths. I see you, right? We see that in each other. That's a benefit. It doesn't need to be some, oh, you're a reflection of me, so let's hold hands now and sing songs. We can do that, but like, what's the benefit of that? Maybe there's some benefit, right? I'm just very rational like that. So I think I just wanted to address that, because I think that, again, it's the old expression of toss the baby out with the bathwater. I'm not saying, now we need to go and, do plant ceremonies or whatever, insert whatever thing is unnecessary here, right? But the benefits can still be implemented in our day-to-day lives and used along with what you're learning in the Bible. I'm not saying replace the Bible, right? A lot of what we're talking about comes down to, in a lot of ways, serving God. Like, God has you here for a purpose. What's my purpose? Well, what do I feel excited about doing? Right? What's my purpose? What do I wake up early for? What will I wake up, or what will I go out of my way to do? That's probably has a lot to do with my purpose. Does it mean I know the whole thing right now completely? Of course not. But I think that that's kind of something we can pick up on next time. But I do want to wrap it up. Any final thoughts from your end? It's been great.
I agree with you. Everything you just said. The one thing that to come back full circle is the difference between looking for something external as opposed to going internal is it doesn't allow you to face the music of your own problems and cleaning up your own room. And so I really feel like if people really want to take a really strong spiritual journey, just take a look in the mirror and look what you're doing and look at your thoughts and look at the bad habits that you allow yourself to get into and write them down on a piece of paper and strive to just better yourself all the way around every single day. There's no magic pill that's out there. Trust me. I thought I could find them, like limitless. I thought I was going to find that one pill that was going to take me over the top. And I found out that it was just autonomy, dude, taking my own accountability.
What happens?
What's that?
Remember what happens at the very end?
Yes, what happened? He took the whole thing or something.
He gets to the point where he doesn't need to use the pill anymore. And
that's right. That's right.
Like, that's what, for me, is creating that structure. We can dial back more into it next time. But
I love it, man.
Structure is there. We tend to just follow the structure, even if it's not 100% of the time.
Yeah. Love you, G.
All right,
thank you.
Awesome. We'll talk more soon. I'm going to send you the link.
All right. Thank you, bro.
All right, buddy. Talk to you then.